All right, thanks everybody. Again, welcome to all our council members and to everyone who's joining us via the live stream on YouTube. The link, if you want to access the closed captioning, the link for that is in the chat. It will open in a separate window, and then you can resize your different screens to make to whatever arrangement works best for you. We will get started in just a minute. I'm Marny Helfrich from the Maryland State Department of Education, and I am for just a few minutes here your acting chair. As members of the council are hopefully aware, Dr. Lisa Lee Egbert's term on the council expired, and new council members were added in her place. So I will just be trying to move us through our agenda till we get to the place of a new chair election, and then we'll turn the meeting over to whomever might be elected. So if we could start with just giving our two new council members just a minute each to introduce themselves, and then we'll move into the rest of our agenda. So Dr. Bo Bayan, would you introduce yourself to the group, please? Or Fred, that's good. Fred's got his camera on. Fred, go ahead, and then we'll get Dr. Bo after you're done.
You want me to start? Bo, do you want to start? Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You go first. You go ahead. Okay. Hello there. I am Fred Hartman. Obviously, I am the newest member of this council. It's an honor for me to be involved in this council. I was thrilled to be chosen. A little bit about myself. I'm semi-retired from the federal government. I worked there for 33 years, but I still teach American Sign Language at the community college, and I have been doing that for 33 years or 34 years, 34, I don't know, something around that area. I'm involved with the Howard County Association of the Deaf, HCAD is its acronym, since its inception in 1999. And I currently am still involved with that organization, and it's time for me to move on to the next level. So this council asked me to join, and I am thrilled to be involved with you guys. I guess that's all I have to say. Do you want me to go on in more detail? No, that's enough for me. Now let's turn it over to Dr. Bo. Hi, I am Dr. Bo Bayan. I am a dentist, and I have been a dentist since 1998. I moved here in Maryland in 1998, and I have a practice, and I enjoy my dentist practice, and a lot of deaf people come to my practice, and a variety of different people come to my practice, and I feel honored to be involved with all of you, and I'm thrilled. So right now, I'm a little bit awkward, but I'm going to learn a lot from you, how things work, how to work together and things like that. So hopefully you'll welcome me with warm hands and hearts.
Great, thank you both so much. We're so glad to have you here as part of our group, and we can't wait till we can all be together in person to actually meet and welcome you. But for now, you know, Zoom is what we have, and Zoom is how we're able to get our tasks done. So now we'll begin to move through our agenda. And the first thing we're going to start with is a continuation of discussion from previous meetings about Maryland School for the Deaf and some of their current activities to address some of the concerns that have been raised by members of the community about systemic inequality and other issues at the school, as well as their search for new leadership. So Chair Hlibok, from the chair of the board, had contacted Kelby and asked for the opportunity to speak to the council and provide an update. So we're going to turn the floor over to him to share whatever information he would like to share, and then to take questions from members of the council. And after that, then the council will have an opportunity for some discussion about what next steps, if any, the group feels are appropriate. So with that, we'll turn it over to Stephen for his presentation. Thank you so much.
Hello, Acting Chair Marny and Kelby and all of the members. Thank you for the suggestion, your service to the state of Maryland. Some of you are very familiar faces to me, and I want to give you a little brief summary about myself. I am Stephen Hlibok, and similar to Marny, I am the interim chair as well. I started October 1st of 2020 as interim chair of the MSD Board of Trustees, and I want to bring MSD to you and things that we've taken action, things that we are doing since the summer. I think it's important that we share and exchange some information. We are a state agency. We are a mandated agency as part of the state of Maryland, and we like to work with all of your agencies as well. Now, first of all, what happened? We received several letters last summer. And in these letters, they showed some concerns relative to Black Lives Matters issues. That was presented to the board, and the Board of Trustees noticed that we needed to recognize things that were happening and to ensure that we are involved in this process. And the interpreters just aren't being seen. Can everybody see me? The interpreters are speaking. Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, now back to where I was. In June 2020, we called for a special meeting to discuss, identify, and then move ahead with what was going on. We had 4 very critical action plans we set in place. The board and the school agreed to establish 6 working groups. Those 6 working groups were all involved with BIPAC issues: student life, personnel, education, and so forth, to address various issues. A lot of good information was collected from these 6 working groups. We also gathered letters. Some of the letters were able to be replied to. Some letters had personnel issues involved. So we put them all together. Now, during that particular time, we also noticed that we needed to hire a chief diversity officer. So through procedures of interviews and so forth, we're still in the process now of hiring a CDO. Now, the third thing was to set up and identify a group that would give us perspective, not within our school, a neutral person from outside of the school, to give us a unique perspective, bring us their expertise and their experience in reviewing the school. It starts with who? It starts with us, the Board of Trustees, from the top to the bottom, to give a thorough review. They're going to review our policy. They will review the manuals. They will review the system of the school for the deaf to make sure that things are updated and make any suggested changes that need to be made. And through that hiring, we were able to hire this consultant group about a month ago. The company's name is Atayo. It's a professional organization to review, they're involved with racism and educational issues. And this woman is now running the ACC Community College, Anne Arundel Community College, and she also will be working with us. We look forward to working with her. It's been a wonderful experience so far. And the fourth item, we started to look for a new superintendent. We also are making sure that outsiders come to develop leadership profile with your feedback, the school's feedback, the community feedback, students' feedback, teachers' feedback. And with that, we will develop a leadership profile. The group is led by Invitee Consultant Group. They are also a deaf-owned and consultant business. innovate. We are very proud to have them working with us. So that's where we are at this moment in time. Now, also, we would love it, if not for COVID, to invite all of this council members to come to the campuses, Frederick and Columbia campuses, in order to learn more about our school and our students. We have roughly 460 to 470 students at this time. COVID, I have to admit, is a challenge for all of us throughout the state. We have to make sure that everybody has access, and everybody, you know, if you're driving and dropping off and picking up equipment, we have to make sure that everybody has internet service. Those logistics are very, very challenging for us now to be able to continue the education remotely for our students. We need to make sure that every child gets the best education there is possible, and to also feel safe on campus when they return. I will let you all have the opportunity to ask additional questions if you have some. That's it for me. Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much for that update. At this point, we can take questions from any council members. So just use the raise hand feature in Zoom, or indicate in the chat that you have a question, and then we can get your camera turned on and let you ask your questions. Great. Norma, did you have a question? Tracy, and can we get Norma spotlighted?
Hello. Sorry about this very noisy background environment that I have, but this is my son's classroom. I do have a few questions for you regarding the Maryland School for the Deaf on the different things that you're dealing with. First is about the CDO, Chief Diversity Officer search. You began, I believe, in July. Am I correct about that? You publicized that. You received applications. They had community forums, I understand. Now, what is the update on the CDO? Are you going to be releasing information soon? Maybe you've mentioned it and I overlooked it. I'm just curious about that. What's happened? Okay, so with the CDO search, we started in July. We created a new position. This has never happened before, and I believe it may be the first school that has a CDO position in the nation. We had to go through the proper job descriptions being written. We also had to go through the state of Maryland, their requirements for posting. We don't create our own job posting, so we have to comply with everything that the state requires of us, and that process takes some time. The timeline for the posting was posted, then the application time frame was closed, and CDO is part of the school. We, the board, are not involved in the CDO hiring process. We recognize and we support that concept, but it's the school itself who follows the state's procedures for hiring. And I believe they will be announcing the CDO's name shortly.
Okay, and my second question is, do you mind, again, you said that you had several candidates. Could you share the candidates' names?
There are two candidates, and both, there was actually a vlog released, I want to say the last week of November. I believe there were two people that were signing, two of the candidates were signing, and we had a community survey disseminated, and they have closed the response time for the surveys. So that there are two candidates. One is Amish, and the other one is Miss Jackson, I believe.
Okay. Okay. And so you believe that the final candidate's name will be released shortly?
Well, the school will do that, not us, not the Board
Okay.
of Trustees. See, okay, the state of Maryland does not allow the Board of Trustees to be involved. It's
Okay.
actually up to the state to do the hiring. We have no role in this.
Okay.
If we are not allowed to cross the lines on this,
Got
so
it.
we keep out of this and keep separate.
Is there any way for individuals who are not within the MSD community to be aware of what's going on with MSD?
Sure, yes, I love the idea of having community involvement, and I want to find better ways. And that's another reason why I'm here today, presenting to the council. I want to
Okay.
reach out to people like yourself. All of the information currently is located on MSD's website. They have wonderful resources and all kinds of information there. The information that is listed there is information that the community also gets. We also have Instagram. We have a Facebook presence. We also have what's called the Maryland School Newsletter. It's published twice a week. Mondays, this information comes from the superintendent, and Friday is school-wide information that's released to the MSD community dealing with various events, things that are happening, projects that are going on, and news that has happened that's with the school. And last 2.5 months, I have forwarded all of the information on to Kelby, and I've asked him to share it with the council members. So yes, and also let me show you this. We have the Maryland Bulletin. This is a Maryland Bulletin. These are pictures of the recent graduates from the Maryland School for the Deaf, pictured on the front. And we send this out to various organizations. And if you want to receive this, please contact me, Steve Hlibok. There is also a website for the board to reach out to the board and say, I would like to subscribe to the Maryland Bulletin, and I can add your name to receive this either in a printed hard copy or digital version.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Here's all the graduates. So proud of these graduates. And one person I want to add, one thing I want to add, all of our BIPOC students received diplomas, not certificates, in the year 2020. So we're very, very proud of them.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm done with my questions for now. Marny, thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Norma. Is there any, I'm looking at the participant list. I don't see any other raised hands. Do any other council members have questions? You could raise your hand or, oh, okay. Larry, Dr. Gray, did you have a question? You can have the floor.
Hi, Larry.
Hi. Hello. Hello.
Hi there.
You know, the last 2 or 3 meetings, our advisory council has been discussing Maryland School for the Deaf and their situation. Aaron Buckskis is a member, and we've been keeping abreast of the CDO search, the superintendent search, and all of the various happenings. And as you know, over the years, there have been parents and teachers, staff, and some students that have had issues with the school. So we want to make sure that the new CDO and the new superintendent, when they're selected, don't ignore the past, that they don't necessarily just look to the future only, but they also recognize and address the past. So I was just curious what actions have been taken.
Good question, Larry. The question is the statement is the history is valid, but we don't, how are we going to handle this particular situation? And that's why we had decided to hire an independent consulting firm to come on board. And this group person will look at all the letters that were sent to us, some of the signed messages, articles in the newspaper, and the 6 working groups. Their information and their notes will be passed on to this neutral CDO party. We'll be working, or this independent consultant, we'll be working with them, not for just a short time, but ongoing. We believe that the system itself is not perfect. It is flawed. And that actually applies to all schools,
That's
wherever you are.
Very
It's
true.
flawed. So it's the system that needs to change. I am more than open to this and embracing the changes. I'm hoping to support and see these changes go through. Now, to recognize the past, how are we going to do that? That independent consultant is an expert in consulting. So they are going to be a consultant. They're going to look at our policy, all of our policies. It's not going to just be the school. It's going to be the Board of Trustees as well. How do we improve our relationships and communications? How are we going to measure this? Where are the benchmarks? How are we going to set the benchmarks? So there's a lot on the table to oversee and review.
I appreciate that. Thank you for your response.
Anyone else? Jacob's helping me monitor the chat here as well and the raised hands. I have a quick question if, while other people are thinking about their questions. A lot of the discussion that was raised in the, in the community was around racial justice issues, and you've spoken a lot about how you're addressing those, which is great to hear. Also, some conversation about the school's role in the education of deaf disabled students with autism, intellectual disability, emotional disabilities, other special needs. And I wonder what you and the board sort of think about that in terms of the school moving forward and any actions that are being taken or considered in that area.
Marny, that's a very important group. And that's one of the reasons why the school really is not actually open yet. We want to make sure that those deaf plus students are safe. We need to make sure all of these students, they are handled through an IEP. So we want to make sure that each of those children have their own needs, whether it's social, and how we can link to each of those individual children. We have something called an enhanced services program at the Maryland School for the Deaf, and it's funded by various sources in order to support those students with special needs. And I agree, those needs must be met and be assuredly met before we can open up the school and bring them on board. They need more support. They need additional attention. I believe, I don't have full information, but I do believe that some individuals have already gone and provided to their homes and given them the special equipment that they need. And it's very challenging. But that brings us to another concern that I have about the state of Maryland. Now, Maryland School for the Deaf has the ability to connect with these deaf children. What about those children who are home alone, deaf children who are not part of this school, who are alone in various places throughout the state of Maryland in their own homes? I'm concerned. How are they getting the kind of services that they so need? That's one area that we want to look into to make sure. I'm talking about the children who are not enrolled in the Maryland School for the Deaf. Are they getting the kind of education that they need? Is there something that we can provide such as resources to work with those particular county school students that are one and they are home alone?
Thank you. Norma, did you have? Oh, let's see. It looks like Michelle has a question. So let's hit Michelle, since we haven't heard from her yet. And then it looks like maybe Norma has another question. So after Michelle, then Norma.
Hi, Steve. Good to see you. It's not necessarily a question for you, but I just wanted to make a comment as a parent of two students who go to MSD. I want to share my appreciation with how hard MSD has worked and the effort that has put into continuing their education during COVID and to provide them the best education possible. I just wanted to share with the group that my personal experience as a parent, that I am very appreciative. My two children are doing very well. They are. And I've seen MSD make, the best, they're trying to make the best of it out of COVID.
Oh,
Michelle, you froze. Michelle, back up. Michelle, back up.
Well, I'm very
Michelle.
grateful. I'm making the best.
Okay. Michelle had frozen for a bit. I just wanted to make sure that we interpreted fully and completely her message, but okay. Okay, hi, are we clear again? Yes, I'm clear.
Let's just
She's in
say,
chat. She's
maybe
looking
she
at
doesn't
chat.
see us.
She's looking at chat.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, we see you, Michelle.
Am I good? Am I okay?
Michelle typed in chat, I'm fine, but everyone else is frozen. So we're seeing Michelle and she's not seeing us.
So where do you want me to back up to and start over?
Again,
I just want
the board to know that as a parent, I am very appreciative for all that MSD has done for the students. And it's not just, I'm not the only one who feels that way. It's not just for my children. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. It's very good for the school to hear those comments, your comments. It really does. They have to make hard and difficult decisions on a daily basis. We have to make sure that all of our children, our students are safe and protected from COVID virus. And, they're trying their best every day. Thank you so much for your comments.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. I think Norma had another question. So Norma, go ahead.
Hello again. Can you see me? Yes. Okay. As Michelle just mentioned, I'm also a parent of deaf children at a different school. They don't attend Maryland School for the Deaf, but comments were just made and I wanted to respond that I am very proud of those students on the cover of the Maryland School Bulletin. You made that comment about all of the BIPOC students who graduated last year, graduated with a diploma. And I was just curious why you would emphasize that, or where was the significance of that coming from? Is there another way to graduate other than graduating with a diploma? I was just curious about that comment.
Yes, I'll answer. That's a very good question, Norma, that you ask. A lot of people through letters that they have sent to us saying that they may not have gotten the good education. And I made that response to clarify that based on some letters that we've received.
I'm just curious, what was the other way to graduate though? You implied that there was two ways for graduation.
Now, in the past, the school has its own diploma until I don't know the history, but at one point, Maryland School for the Deaf asked MSDE, the State Department of Education, to recognize the school as diploma equivalent to the Frederick County and the Howard County Public Schools. And we met those state requirements, and they are exactly the same that we meet in the School for the Deaf. And from there on out, those who meet those requirements for the counties and the state requirements to receive a diploma will receive a Maryland State High School diploma, the same equivalent as in the public school. Those who are not getting the equivalent of a Maryland State High School diploma, they get another kind, they get a certificate of completion. We also serve students who are in the Enhanced Student Services Program, and they have a certain agreement for job transitioning programs. We serve not only one particular group of students.
Okay, so from that comment that you just made, there may have been a concern about, or a complaint about students who are not receiving equivalent diplomas?
No,
That letter.
no.
Was that letter published during the summer? Was that the concern? I was just curious.
Okay. So no, it's not related to a BIPOC concern or student. That's a myth that has been carried around for many, many years, and I just want to dispel the myth.
Okay, interesting. Okay, thank you.
So this is Marny, and I'll just put on my MSDE hat, so to speak, for a moment and just clarify that for all students with disabilities across the state, there is the option of, if students are able to meet the requirements, graduating with a high school diploma. And like Stephen was saying, Maryland School for the Deaf issues its own diplomas for students who have met those criteria. And then there's also the certificate of program completion, which is for students whose IEP teams have determined that they're not going to be able to meet the requirements of a diploma in terms of earning credits and passing the high school assessments. And so they receive a certificate that indicates that they've completed the program that their IEP team designed for them in order to be ready for transition and life after school. It's primarily for our students with the most significant intellectual disabilities who participate in the alternate assessment, but it does apply to some other students with IEPs as well. So that's not specific to Maryland School for the Deaf. That's something that applies to students in special education across the state. That's your Maryland State Department of Education lens on that question. Are there any other questions?
Thank you, Marny. Thanks for that clarification. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. So if there are no further questions from council members, well, thanks, Stephen, so much for joining us and sharing that information and responding to our questions. And we can move to the next piece of our agenda. So thank you, Stephen. We appreciate your time and your information.
You're most welcome. One more thing I'd like to add. If anyone would like us to keep you informed, please feel free to contact me. I'll be available for you all at any time. And if you would like to subscribe to news from the School for the Deaf, please feel free to email me through our website. Look at Facebook, Instagram. They will keep the community updated. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great. So
You're
for the
welcome.
council members, then if there are other comments or concerns that folks want to share or voice about the situation at Maryland School for the Deaf, or any action that the council feels is appropriate at this point. I know at our last meeting, our special meeting, we had some discussion about a motion that had been put forward previously asking for investigation of the concerns that have been raised over the summer. We had some confusion amongst the council about what action the council had or had not taken about that. So if folks feel that action is needed, now would be a good time to discuss that, and then we can move forward with that. So I don't want to put anyone on the spot if they're not ready, but Larry, Dr. Gray, I know you had brought forward that motion before. Is that something you'd like the council to consider at this point? Or if you have other thoughts about what our next steps might be, I offer you the first opportunity to speak if you'd like.
Hello, everyone. It's actually up to the council members. I'd be happy to repeat the motion if you would like to discuss it, or if you feel satisfied with the presentation, then we just move ahead. Some people might say, well, we didn't realize that there was a motion, and it's actually up to the council to decide what you want to do with this. Do you feel that we need to repeat the motion for clarity?
I mean, I think it would be appropriate, yes, to why don't you go ahead and make the motion, and then the council can discuss it and then decide. That way we can vote if people want to move forward with it or not. I think that'll be the most straightforward
Okay.
way
Yep.
to do
Okay.
it.
All right. We'll do. Okay. Okay. All right. Got it. Thank you, Marny. Thank you. I will repeat the motion. I move that we send the Inspector General from the Department of Education to the Maryland School for the Deaf and get involved in the process. I'll wait till somebody seconds that motion.
Is there a second? Just turn on your camera and raise your hand to indicate that you'd like to second. Thank you, Veronica. So the motion second by Veronica. So then we can have discussion of the motion. Larry, do you want to?
Okay, Veronica, thank you. Now, the reason behind this motion is I noticed in our prior meetings, there was some discussion about what MSD is involved with doing, like getting a consultant, getting different people involved. And it seems that there's a lack of representation from the state of Maryland. And I want to make sure that the state of Maryland is involved in the process and that there's proper protocol being followed. Perhaps Maryland has more resources to support this effort. And that's why I made this motion, that the Inspector General go to the Maryland School for the Deaf and be involved in the process and overseeing that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Other comments or thoughts about the motion from other members of the council? Just raise your hand or turn your camera on. Greg, you want to make a comment? Thank you.
Yes, and this doesn't necessarily go to the merits of wanting to get involved in the case. I understand that, but I think there's two different tracks here. So requesting that the Inspector General from the State Department of Education become involved is, I would think, different than the council itself perhaps becoming more involved. And I say that only because in my experience, the Inspector Generals will take a complaint and will investigate it, but that investigation and the efforts there are generally considered confidential. And so I think there needs to be an expectation that if the Inspector General are involved, that doesn't mean that the council will necessarily be getting more information about what's occurring with that investigation. So I throw that out there without commenting on the merits of of that, or whether it's good or bad, but I think folks need to understand that from my experience, they're not going to be sharing that much information until they reach the conclusion of their investigation. And then, even then, it may not be a public result that is produced. So, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Any other thoughts, comments, questions for Larry, questions for the group from council members? It doesn't look like there. Oh, Norma, great, thank you. That's Norma, the floor.
I just reviewed the meeting minutes from June and September. And if I remember correctly, when this motion was first made, it was urgent. It was very urgent. Black Lives Matter protests were happening across the nation. Just a moment. George Floyd had just been killed. So Black Lives Matter movements had just started at that time. And so this question was raised because of parents, because of the community who were speaking up at that time. And so now it's been several months later, and I have to admit that the fervor has died down a bit, but I believe that it's still a worthy endeavor. Again, it's not just how and what and why. I'm not sure how, but I do feel that there should be some kind of external involvement. I'm not exactly sure how that can happen. And if there's another entity or organization that should be involved, or another agency department that should be involved, maybe it's the Inspector General, maybe it's not, maybe it's ODHH that we request the office itself to have some involvement. But I do feel that MSD as a whole for the past has been more quote unquote isolated, not as transparent. Information that was shared from leadership to the community of MSD and also from MSD in general to individuals, the community as a whole. The hows and the whys, is that shared? Is it not shared? That's just my 2 cents though, is my concern about transparency.
Great, thank you, Norma. Yeah, Larry, go ahead.
Thank you for all of your comments and your consideration. We also have to remember the reason this motion was brought up was we were talking about the Maryland School for the Deaf, and it seems that Maryland School for the Deaf will pull in external groups, but there's no outside groups looking in at the Maryland School for the Deaf. Mr. James, you were right. Maybe the IG coming in will write a report, but it won't be shared. But it does show that the state came and checked things out. The concern was that Maryland School for the Deaf is fixing itself internally from internal sources. Is the state being involved? I'm not sure. So we just thought we could have them send, just send somebody to investigate as one of the solutions.
Kelby has his hand up, so you can have the floor, Kelby.
Always had state oversight. Is it accurate to say they do something? Kelby, you got it. As I see the discussion happening, I think everyone here has important views in terms of continuing to ensure that MSD is making improvements for the community and all of those concerned. Again, I think it's very helpful to clarify. There's a lot of different areas where MSD, the school itself, does receive oversight in various ways.
Am I an expert?
I'm not an expert in this, but I do know, for example, from the top of my head, that there is the Board of Trustees itself. They do meet with the Department of Education, MSDE, to have curriculum reviews, assessment reviews. They also do
Mandates.
have different mandates that they have to meet. They also have oversight from DBM on their budget, on their finances. They do have legislative oversight as well. As we saw, there was a hearing a month or two ago. They will have more hearings, I would assume. So I'm not sure exactly if that's a complete comprehensive list of their oversight. And I'm not sure that this is appropriate. And I'm not recommending that you do or do not take any action, but maybe the council can ask for Maryland School for the Deaf to provide some kind of matrix. Again, I'm thinking outside the box here. But I'm thinking out loud that there could be a matrix of the various ways in which they're held accountable. Stop. Off campus, whatever, in whatever way that means. And then the inspector general could see where those gaps are.
No.
And make improvements. And that's one possibility, to ask for that review.
Larry says, thank you.
Want to be mindful of our timing within the meeting to make sure we can get to everything we need to do today, and at the same time not short circuit the important discussion. So are there other comments or questions that folks want to share before we move to a vote on Larry's motion? I'm trying to look at the list in the chat, and I know Jacob and Tracy Ann are helping out with that as well.
Larry, I suggest we close the discussion and move to a vote. Thank you all for being mindful of the time, Marny.
All right, thank you. I'm not seeing anyone else with their hands raised to make a comment. So, all right, let's try this. This is a little bit challenging in this virtual format, but I think with Tracy Ann's help, we can do this. Let's have just for a minute. Let's have everyone turn your cameras on so that we can vote by show of hands. Okay, can everybody turn their camera on? If you're not able to turn on your camera, you can vote in the chat, but it'll be easier if we can do it this way. I see you all popping up one by one on the screen. Hopefully we won't tax the internet too much. All right. So if you are in favor of Larry's motion that the council request that the MSDE Inspector General investigate the ongoing concerns at MSD, then please raise your hand. If you are in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All right, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so I see 9 in favor. Tracy Ann and Jacob, does that look right? Okay, if you're okay, so you can put 10 in favor. Okay. Okay, put your hands down. If you're opposed to the motion, please raise your hand. You're opposed to the motion. Okay, I'm not seeing any votes opposed. Okay. Great. All right, so the motion passes 10 with the remaining members abstaining. All right, great. You can turn your cameras back off. Thank you for that. That worked out relatively well, I think. Hopefully that was accessible for everyone. Great, thank you. All right, so we're ready to move into the next section of our agenda, which is our sort of regular process of receiving reports, and then we'll move to the election following that. So as your very temporary acting chair, I don't have anything to report at this point. So I'll turn it to our secretary, Vikki Porter for approval of past meeting minutes and anything else that she wants to share at this point. Vikki?
Hi, Marny. I actually do not have a formal report at this time. And I would like to apologize for the very last, very late submission of the meeting minutes. Are there any corrections?
Around the world. Why was searched more than
Please let me know. And if not, I move that we pass as written.
So Vicki's moving that we approve the meetings from the,
and find
unless
all
there's any other comments from the September and November meetings. Is there a second to them for that motion? You just turn your camera on and raise your hand to second.
I
Thank
move.
you, Greg. Okay, Norma has a question. Great. Go ahead, Norma.
Hi again, Vikki. I just saw the most recent minutes. It says Kelby mentioned that he wants to report about,
He wants his reports.
he
in
wants his
English and
reports
English.
in English and in ASL, or how is that? What's Kelby's report format in ASL or in English, or both? I'll let Kelby answer, Vikki says.
And does that apply to all of the officers as well?
Kelby, are you able to speak to that question? Not seeing if Kelby's able to, oh, Kelby's having technical difficulties for the moment, Jacob said. My understanding, while we're waiting for Kelby to be able to come on screen. Oh, there's Kelby. Go ahead, Kelby.
I missed the question, Marny. Or Vikki.
So Norma had asked, was she noticed on the minutes that the council had requested reports to be accessible in both ASL and in English? So she was curious about who's responsible for the ASL part. Is that me? Should I sign it? How do the officers share that information, or is that coming from the office itself?
Okay, that's helpful. Now it goes back to the discussion of my submitting my report in advance in written English. And I said, no, I want my report in English and in text at ASL at the same time. It's not for others. It's actually, basic. It's just for its basic value for me. So I'll do it in both English and in ASL.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
All right, if there are not any other questions, let's try this. I'll move that we adopt, I guess we already have the motion on the floor. So if you're in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, turn on your camera and raise your hand, or type I in the chat.
Vikki says, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vikki, for your hard work on those, and thank you, everyone. So at this point, next on our agenda would be Kelby's report. So Kelby, we'll pass the floor back to you.
Thank you all. Vikki says, you're going to do Kelby's report, right? No. I'll put the face.
Good afternoon, members of the council. Before I begin my report, I wanted to take a moment to recognize where we are and what we're facing here in Maryland with the coronavirus. We've had 236,600 people with coronavirus. 4,000 individuals have passed away. So again, we're in a critical state right now, and I just wanted to bring that to our attention. During my director's report, I'm going to highlight various actions that have taken over the past quarter. It's a very exciting time, but I also wanted to say thank you to the new members who have joined us, and thank you to the past members. We're looking forward to working with you in various ways. The council is becoming more diverse as individuals with varying backgrounds, varying experience, contribute into the council in different ways. Again, Maryland, our council serves everyone. Governor Hogan has impressed to us time and time again that we need to serve all individuals, all constituents in Maryland. And our council is reflecting that. We have focused on developing various strategies for communicating information with the community, for example, with the vaccines. As you know, it was just approved last Friday, and hopefully they will approve another one this week. Various states have submitted plans for the vaccination itself. Again, it will be provided to priority groups such as healthcare providers and those who are in most serious need than others, are vulnerable populations. And we have advocated for our own populations. For example, our deafblind individuals who are heavily reliant on tactile services. And so we've asked for them to have a higher priority list, be higher up on the priority list. We've also worked with the Department of Disabilities on how to provide outreach to the community and to different constituents on what is the best way to have a vaccine and to get it safely. Marny? Oh. Marny, did you have a question? Oh, okay. So look for more information on vaccines forthcoming. Again, we're also expanding our pool of interpreters. As you've seen, we've had various interpreters providing services for the governor's press conferences. We're trying to grow their expertise to have different individuals ready to serve the community, and it's a valuable experience for those. So we are providing both hearing and deaf interpreters as a team for the governor's press conferences. Jacob Salem is the chair for the Cultural and Linguistic Competency Committee. He serves on the Behavioral Health Advisory Council, and he's been striving to provide more access to share information and again, encourage deaf service providers to work directly with deaf constituents and patients. He's worked with the council and the various regions and health coordinators to review policies to make sure that needs are being met and services are accessible to deaf and hard of hearing individuals and other disabled communities. So again, we're not only focused on deaf and hard of hearing population and deaf and hard of hearing users, but individuals, all individuals with disabilities. We're now being involved in new ways and in various plans to make sure that access is there. Department of Disabilities announced the Equal Employment Act, the EEA. As you may or may not know, individuals with disabilities have been historically hired for sub-minimal jobs or sub-minimal pay, meaning that they would perform the same job but receive less pay. So we wanted equal pay for equal work. And several years ago, that was required. This has been in progress for years, and this has finally been passed, that minimum wage will be earned. There will be no waivers. And that was big news. That was announced by Department of Disabilities last week. We've also been involved with the Hearing Aid Accessibility Board, ensuring that any new construction for state businesses or state-owned property and buildings and public use buildings will have access to hearing loops. Jacob has been heavily involved with this group as well. There's another program under Department of Aging considered No Wrong Door, which is connecting with our aging and senior population. Very often individuals are frustrated when they need services and they get run around from person to person or bounced around from agency to agency. Very often individuals with disabilities have varying needs and they spend a majority of their day chasing down the people that they need to talk to. So this is a way that resources are consolidated, they're centralized, which means that you contact one person and you can find various resources or services that you may need instead of getting the runaround. We're also continuing to be involved with the Maryland School for the Deaf situation. I have met with legislators. I met with school officials and the community members who have varying concerns and issues. And they range from support for Maryland School for the Deaf to concerns about Maryland School for the Deaf. We have gathered information, we have listened, and we have tried to be involved with discussion and conversation. I think that conversation is healthy in making Maryland better for all. Maryland School for the Deaf did very nicely reach out to us and ask for our involvement in the superintendent search process. I thanked them, but we did decline. And the reason why is that we think it's very important that Maryland School for the Deaf maintain their independence. And we did reinforce that we expect them to follow our principles for the deaf ecosystem. And that should be a priority, but we did not need to be involved at this time. We're gaining the notice of other states with coronavirus, with mental health issues on the rise, and how to provide access to individuals. As you may remember, a few years ago, Maryland changed, and we were ahead of the game on that. So again, we had Medicare rules, Medicaid rules approved telehealth and mental health therapy for deaf individuals and patients. And this was approved years before coronavirus hit. So now other states are reaching out to our office to find out all of the details on how we have made these change. But this is another way that Maryland is ahead of the game. And last but not least, I am very proud of the community. Community has gathered together and they've taken ownership in Legislative Awareness Day. We hosted a town hall meeting. We had a wonderful panel discussion and our annual awards as well. Hopefully, the council saw that one of your own, Vikki Porter, received an award. Congratulations, Vikki, again. And we hope to have more continued community involvement from not only Legislative Awareness Day, but in other ways. We think it's important that the community take ownership in this process. And we continue to look for further partnerships with community involvement. So if you know anyone who is ready and excited for some civic engagement, please reach out and let them know we're here. We're in this together. And as wintertime approaches, as the governor has warned, please stay safe. Please reduce travel. Try not to if you don't have to travel. Get tested, wear your mask, get safe. Quarantine if you do have to travel. Again, as we've seen, the light is at the end of the tunnel. The vaccines are here, but we have a long way to go until we get there. Don't think that we're done, we're over and we're safe. Please continue to be safe and quarantine, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelby. Are there any, oh, I see Larry has his hand up. So a question for Kelby from Larry.
It's too big.
Hi, and thank you for your report, Kelby. Actually, I have two questions, but because of the time restraints, I'll focus on one question. The Legislative Awareness Day, great job. I really enjoyed the 2 nights for the legislature, Legislative Awareness Day. And I talked about the SIL with my friends and community members. But what is the status regarding SLIL, the Sign Language Interpreter Licensure Bill? What's up with that? I know that it has to be filed, dropped by next month. So what's the current status, Kelby, if you know?
That's a great question. And the honest answer is that I don't know. I do not have any information on either. If you remember last year and 2 years ago, there were bills that flamed out immediately.
Yes, I do.
I'm not sure if there will again be another bill introduced. And if there will be a new bill, will it be new? Will it be the same as the previous years? I'm not sure. No one has of yet reached out to my office. There is the potential for some legislators that we've heard who may introduce the bill, but at this time, I don't have confirmed information.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Eddie. Eddie has a question. So Eddie, you have the floor.
Hi, Eddie.
Hello, Kelby. I want to thank you so much for your report. I truly appreciate you sharing the information, and I have a question. You were talking about the hearing aid coverage for the community, and I was wondering if you are discussing health insurance. Will they cover hearing aids? Because some deaf people cannot afford the purchase of hearing aids. They're indigent, and I think they should. And I think that Medicare and Medicaid should cover the cost of hearing aids for any of those individuals, whether they be inexpensive or expensive. They should be covered by these insurance programs, which can afford to do so. For those who, and those who can afford to do so will do it themselves, will purchase themselves.
Thank you. Let me clarify, Jacob has been involved in that. And if I've missed any information, Jacob, feel free to jump in. I completely agree with you, Eddie. Was it 1 or 2, I believe it was 2 years ago, we worked with the Department of Health to change the rules for Medicaid. Medicaid now covers this for all individuals from infants to adult, for all ages. Individuals are able to receive hearing aids from state Medicaid. Private insurance is where it varies. I think 4 or 5 years ago, we passed a law that had expanded coverage of hearing aids up to age 18 and above. But again, that was private insurance is a different story.
Marny might know.
And Marny may know differently, but the current situation as I know it is that Medicaid will cover pretty much everybody now. It's private insurance, which mostly covers, I think, up to is it 18 or 21. And there's that gap. It varies from insurance to insurance. Some do, but some do not. And for adults, there's that age gap where when they're adults, it's no longer covered. And I think that's where we are right now. Right, Marny? If it was,
Yes, it's through age 18. And the other gap is that the legislation covers insurance companies that are based in Maryland. But if people live in Maryland but have insurance through a company that's in another state, because of their employer or whatever, they may not have full coverage because Maryland doesn't have jurisdiction. So we have more coverage than many states, more protections, but it's certainly not enough to cover everyone.
thank you. Okay, any more questions?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised. So thank you, Kelby, for your report. And
Thank
then
you.
we can proceed to our chair election. And we're doing pretty well with our time. We're just a few minutes behind the schedule we had outlined in the agenda, but we're doing pretty well, so that's great. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, we need a new chair. We received one nomination via email. Michelle Westfall has been nominated, has nominated herself and offered to serve. We can receive also nominations from the floor if there's anyone else who would like to self-nominate, or if anyone would like to nominate another person, and then we'll see if that person would like to accept the nomination. So if you have a nomination, you can just turn your camera on so that we can acknowledge you. All right, I'm not seeing any. In that case, I will move that we elect Michelle Westfall as chair of the council by acclamation. Can I get a second by someone turning on their camera and raising their hand?
This is Larry Gray. I second. Eddie said I second, and Vikki did as well.
All right, thank you all. So then I guess you can all turn on your cameras then, and we'll say all in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All right, and I see a few people voting in the chat as well. That's also fine if that's easier for you. You can vote in the chat. All right. All right. I forgot to turn my mic on. The motion carries, and Michelle is our chair. Thank you, Michelle. And we will turn the meeting right on over to you if you're ready. Thank you. It's all yours, Michelle.
Thank you. I appreciate the vote. I look forward to working with all of the council members in this new role as chair. I'm so very excited. So I guess that I will go with the next item on the agenda that I'm taking over now. Is that right? Or are you?
That's what we had planned, as long as you're comfortable with that. So it's really just new business discussion of the next items.
Right. So yeah, I have the agenda here. So I guess I might as well jump in on the deep end, huh? All right then. Okay. So the first item under new business is create a deaf-blind advisory council. And I believe that the previous board member, Jason Corning, made that motion, I believe. Do the council members want to discuss this item? I'm looking at the chat. Okay. Eddie, you have to sign what Eddie says. Everybody.
Hello?
Sign.
Why do I have to say hello? They can read out that. I believe that I have reviewed all of the old minutes from previous meetings and the reports. And I noticed that Jason Corning did make a motion to establish a sub-advisory committee, I believe, but this has not yet been established by vote. So I would like to make a motion, but I do not know all of the history and the intent of why Jason had withdrawn that committee, that motion to establish the committee. I mean, I can take over the process, but again, I wanted to gather all of the prior history or the information. And I do have some ideas on the logistics of said committee moving forward, and how they would serve the deafblind community in the state of Maryland. But before we proceed, I wanted to gather some history on the intent or the purpose of Jason Corning's motion and why it was withdrawn previously, if anyone has that history that they could share with me.
I agree, and I am familiar with knowing the history and the background would be very helpful. Kelby or someone from the office, whoever, or members of the council, you have that knowledge, please jump in and fill us in. Okay.
Hello. I believe this started as the result of Jason. He was asked to provide a workshop to an advisory council in the state of Connecticut, I believe. So I have no concerns with that. I just think it's important that we develop specific mandates or expectations, a scope per se, as MACDHH has done in the past when we have established ad hoc subcommittees or standing subcommittees. Again, we just want to gather information on a specific thing, on a specific topic. Again, this is something that we can discuss with Eddie on how to best use this, develop specific instructions for the subcommittee. Again, the subcommittee can consist of individuals on the council or outside of the council, or have a mixed subcommittee. Again, we just wanted to make sure that the instructions and the scope were clear before this committee was established.
Okay, this is Michelle. Thank you, Kelby. I'll call on Larry because Larry had his hand raised. Larry?
Hi, I misunderstood. I withdrew. I clicked raised hand. I unclicked it. Sorry about that.
Okay, well. Okay, so I like Eddie's suggestion, and I'm going to check again with Eddie. Eddie, do you want us to set up a subcommittee or what?
Thank you, Michelle. In this case, I feel that it's best to begin small with a small subcommittee. I think that's a good place to start with some guidance, maybe 2 or 3 individuals that could be internal to the council or external. We can then involve other deafblind individuals with the subcommittee. And we can determine how and what is the best use for this. To determine what deafblind services may be needed within the state and how we can best provide this. I can think of SSP services, transportation services, and the list can go on and on from this. I can't list them all, but I do have some ideas in mind. Again, I think first we have to establish this subcommittee, and then later we can grow this committee to an advisory board count status later.
Okay, okay. This is Michelle. I need to clarify what we should do with this motion. So I know that Eddie has moved that there should be, or is that a suggestion or is that a motion, Eddie, for the subcommittee?
Let me clarify again. I move that we establish a subcommittee on deaf blindness and the blind community to build a team that can grow.
Okay, so I will repeat your motion, Eddie. And your motion, Eddie, moves to establish a subcommittee to study deaf blindness and have a committee, okay? Okay, Norma seconds the motion. Would you like to discuss this further, the motion further? We've got time restraints here, so if you all agree, we can move it to a vote and close discussion.
I'd like to make just a quick comment.
Okay, we're going to vote on Eddie's motion to establish a subcommittee. This is Michelle, so I'm looking for your vote now. In favor, raise your hand. 7, I'm 8. Okay, 10. Okay, there's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10. I guess that's pretty much everybody. Is there any opposed? Any opposed? Raise your hand if you're opposed. There being none, the motion passes. Thank you, Eddie. Yay. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. It's a great opportunity. It's a great place to start. We'll start this sooner than later. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, and I agree, Michelle's saying. Okay, so moving ahead, and next new item under this on the agenda is restructuring MACDHH. I don't know the history behind that.
Yeah, that's me. That's me. Thank you. Okay.
This is Larry.
This is Larry. First, let me make the motion. I move that the council consider restructuring MACDHH.
Is there a second to Larry's motion?
Anyone?
Norma? Oh, Fred?
Fred's the second.
I'm visual. Fred says I'm visual. I'm visual. I'm on the camera. Okay, let's go ahead with the discussion, Larry.
Okay, I'm going to try to summarize the history behind this motion. When I joined MACDHH, there were some deaf members and the chair who discussed, and then I became chair. We discussed this, and this has been under discussion and consideration for a while. It seems as if the deaf community members, which are on the council, and the representatives from the state agencies perceive things and see things differently sometimes. That community members tend to want a more active role. We want to send letters of support, to advocate for certain issues, to meet with individuals where the state representatives may not be able to because of constraints. And even though they may personally be in support of an issue, they are not unable to vote on different issues or send letters of support because of their role as a state representative, and therein lies the conflict. So individuals contacted me while I was chair saying that they wanted us to be involved. Organizations would reach out to the council asking for involvement, and we were in a bind. It seems as if there are certain agency representatives, state representatives, whose role may change from, their role could change from advisory to just sitting members of the council. So again, as we send letters of support or letters against different organizations or topics, those members would still be members, but not necessarily in support of these topics. So the restructuring does require legislative action. It would take a little bit of time, and as we know, the legislative session is coming upon us rather quickly. So the council has had a lot of discussions and considerations into the restructuring of this advisory council itself. The deaf community members have been in favor of this because we want to be able to send letters of support or vote on various topics that otherwise we were not able to take a vote on.
Okay, I'm going to call on Greg James. He had his hand raised.
I'm sorry, my apologies. I think Larry has answered the question that's been raised, so I apologize.
What?
Okay, good.
Okay, well then that's a good thing. Okay. All right. This is Michelle again. I call on Vikki. She had her hand raised. Vikki?
Hi. I wanted to add to Larry's discussion or his explanation in that I agree that the state representatives would be more effective in forms of technical assistance. Various issues pop up. There are very often situations where we need to ask for advice or guidance or clarification. Again, we need to have, this needs to be more of an informed decision. We need to make sure of actions that are taken, that we're following proper protocols and things before we make this decision. I do want everyone to keep in mind that MACDHH still has the responsibility and the scope. So that would remain the same, but I do think that if we changed the structure, it would become more effective in listening and addressing concerns from the community.
Larry says, thank you.
Thank you.
This is Michelle. Does anyone else have anything to discuss? Any comments, questions, concerns? Larry says, I think Marny has her hand raised. Marny. Marny?
Thank you. Hello again. So I think that Larry summarized the conversations that we've had over time, very clearly. So I think if we want two things, like we want to move forward from this, then we need to think about like what a restructured council would look like what would be the sort of definitions and roles of the different members. And then we need to talk, I guess, with the staff about like how to move that forward in terms of approaching a member of the legislature to submit a bill to address all of that. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is maybe more of an interim step because, it is December. This is going to be a crazy legislative session, I'm sure, because the last session was cut short and there's a lot of unaddressed issues. Who knows if how the legislature will be able to meet come January, and also what the calendar will look like. So I think that if we aren't able to get this moved forward this year, it's also worth having some conversation within the council about what other, at least sort of interim steps we might be able to take. Like if there's a way, for example, to formulate some kind of a letter that makes it clear to, if there's a bill, say the sign language interpreter licensure bill comes back up and the council, community members of the council want to weigh in on the process, maybe we can work on a way to formulate a statement that makes it clear to the legislators who would receive it that the fact that the council is sending the letter doesn't, indicate endorsement from the agencies that are represented on the council. Because I know I can only speak for myself as a state employee and agency representative. It's been the issue for me. My agency I mean, like, for example, last year there was an educational interpreter licensure bill. So if that moves forward, it would be my agency that would be responsible for implementing it. So it's not appropriate for us to get involved in the process. It's appropriate for us to implement the legislation after it passes and is signed by the governor. But I think as long as it's clear in the letter so that the readers of it, the recipients of it, know that it does not indicate any kind of position for or against anything on behalf of the agencies that are represented on the council, there may be a way that we can move forward.
May I respond? Larry saying,
Michelle said, I think so. I was going to call on Kelby. I know Kelby has his hand raised.
oh, fine. I can respond after Kelby. Okay,
Okay.
After that. Okay, Kelby? No, you can do it.
Dr. Gray, did you want to make your comment?
No,
I don't
no.
mind.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead. You go first.
Okay. As Dr. Gray commented, this is a prior discussion. And again, it requires an action plan of how and when. So first is the change, and what does that mean? We can follow models that were previously proposed by the committee, by the council, and we can discuss the merits of those. Our office can then provide support for the logistics of this. Again, just our involvement does not necessarily mean that it's an endorsement of the office. It's just a way to have a healthy discussion and to share ideas. So first we can have some actionable details and items, and then we can propose this back to the council for your review. To be honest, at this point, your chance of getting something in and passed at this legislative session is nil. It's negligible at this point in time. So, but we prepare now for next session. We could have a draft bill, and if everyone is in agreement and it's non-controversial, that's very easy to send a letter from the council, from the chair, Michelle, to the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, and to the governor as well. And just to say, this is what we have decided upon as a council. Can this happen? And then see if they're open for that. And from there, we can develop an action plan. Again, if this is non-controversial, then we could have this conversation to see what this looks like. And we can set up a committee to write said legislation. That would be my suggestion.
Michelle says, okay, Larry, you're on. Thank you, Marny and Kelby, for your comments. In response to Marny, I get it. I get it. And now I think that, well, we would have better communication because we have great group emails that we can disseminate amongst ourselves. We want to write a letter of support for the educational bill, the SLIL bill, and these state agencies are saying, no, they can't participate in this letter writing. And sometimes the state members don't respond because your vice chair, Marny, I thank you very much for responding, but we don't hear from some of the state representatives. So it seems like, is it that they can't respond to this email about these bills or issues, or maybe they didn't see these emails? And oftentimes the community members are proceeding and with a discussion and responding, having a dialogue. Are the state agencies representatives too busy? We wonder, can we move ahead? Can we move forward without them being involved? We would appreciate more responses from to our group emails from the state agency representatives. We're not sure, are you not sure how you feel or how you stand? And if we send a letter, then, and we say we've got this letter formed, we want to send it off, and then the state agency reps say, no, you can't send it. Kelby just had a good point. Maybe we can't do anything this upcoming legislative session, but we can work on something, look at what the duties will look like, what the strategy is going to look like, what the bylaws would look like. If there is a change, we're going to have to change the bylaws as well. So I think it's a very good idea to start this discussion and continue this discussion. And then maybe by next year, we can propose a clear vision of where we want to go with this idea. Thank you very much for both of your comments. Thank you. Michelle says,
you.
I call on Spencer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? All right.
Ken?
Sounds like
Yes.
we're good. It's
Well, I'm
great
deaf.
to see everyone. It's great to see everybody. Happy December. I hope that you're having a great week. Certainly, I second Kelby's proposal, kind of taking the long-term approach with making sure that we get the process right. As an independent agency with a board of commissioners that set our policy, we do have to bring certain items back to them to determine if MCCR can support or oppose, or if they're not going to take a position on legislation. But all the while, being a member of this advisory council, I can't stress the importance enough of how much we learn from these meetings, from the emails, from interacting with each of you. So we always take notice, and thank you for speaking up and being so passionate about advancing this community, because we share in the same vision, and we certainly stand side by side with you. Unfortunately, with legislation, the devil's in the details. So as we're figuring out the process this year and what we'll do to possibly reform the advisory council, if correspondence is issued by the advisory council and the state agencies don't participate, maybe that's just a footnote on the bottom of the bottom of the letter. So that way it's clear to the policymakers that it's the citizen members of the advisory council that have come to this conclusion. I know I've seen that before with other various coalitions of public advocacy organizations, nonprofit organizations, other groups. They have a subset of their membership that did not take a position or did not want to take a position, and thus left it to the will of the rest of the body to move as they saw fit. So maybe that's a compromise from here on out. Is just throwing that out there, but I really wanted to stress how important it is seeing you all in action. Thank you so much for what you do, and it is incredibly valuable for us and our commissioners as we review legislation in each of the legislative sessions to determine what position we're going to take and also what is going to be a priority of our agency. So thank you so much.
Okay, very well. Thank you. This is Michelle.
I
Thank
see
you.
Vicky's hand is raised.
We only have 15 minutes left, Vicki, so I want to close this discussion. Larry's speaking here.
This is Larry. There's a lot of comments, and you're right. I agree that this does require more dialogue, more discussion. So I would move that we table this to our next meeting when we can have further discussion. But at the same time, I'm very happy to continue this discussion through group correspondence, through email. So again, we can investigate this further. So let me withdraw my motion at this time until we can have further discussion and we can provide more time on that next
This is
meeting's agenda.
Michelle, and I want to thank you very much. Vicki, did you still want to say something?
It's withdrawn. Let me go. Let's keep rolling. I get
All
the
right.
time constraints.
Thank you. You're making my job so much easier. Now, one last item under new business. It's expanding ODHH's office staff. I don't know who made that motion, or is that someone, Kelby?
That was us again. Larry and I both, this was a joint motion that was made, and we had asked to add this to the agenda. It was not yet a motion, but we have heard from people throughout the state of Maryland that there are only 3 staff and they cannot do it all. As well, Maryland itself is very diverse throughout the state. We go from Western Maryland to the Eastern Shore. Very different cultures, very different demographics and people and constituents and so on and so forth. We all know that. So we had thought that satellite offices located within various regions would be better equipped to handle various regions and demographics needs.
Larry, do you have anything else to say? No, this is Larry. You said it all, Vikki, and we did make a motion and it passed, but it just seemed to be on hold. And I wanted to bring it up to be able to push to make this actually happen. Because we really, as Vikki mentioned just now, there's many issues that have come up about wanting to expand the office for the deaf and hard of hearing. And then we have this bill possibly of the SLIL, and ODHH only has 3 people working in it. They are amazing people, but
agree.
they need additional people and more support.
Agree.
So I totally support and am in favor of Vikki's opinions and comments.
Michelle said, I want to clarify. Was this a motion that was passed or this was discussed?
Vikki and Larry says, both of them say yes. Larry says, it just was kind of pushed aside and nothing had happened to it. And so we want to readdress it.
Okay. So in past meeting minutes, this was discussed, addressed, and passed. So I can look in prior meeting minutes, look into this. Is that right?
Larry's saying yes, and we want to make it actually happen. Put it on the record that, again, we are seeing this need for this motion that passed. Yeah, it was passed. It was
It was
passed.
passed. Vikki said it was passed.
It was moved and passed.
Vikki said this was 2018, maybe as long ago as 2018, late 2018, maybe the beginning of 2019.
Okay, so this is Michelle saying that this was already voted upon and passed, and that we, the board, will be working on, I don't know, the logistics of making this actually come to fruition.
Great.
Okay. We are, so to speak, finished with new business unless anyone else has additional new business to discuss. Anyone? Seeing none, I guess everybody is happy. I don't know. Okay, good. All right. So we'll move on to announcements. Anyone have any announcements? Okay.
Tracy Ann wants to make an
Tracy
announcement.
Ann wants to talk about the next meeting. It will be March 12th. What? March
2021.
12th. March 12th, 2021, right? Dawn Patton has a question. She said, well, what happened to the motion that Mary Lynn was working on previously? Dawn, I will make sure that that motion shows up in our next meeting agenda. Is that okay, Dawn?
Hi.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to click my video on. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right.
Great.
Okay. Thank you, Dawn. Okay. Is there any other announcements from anyone? I don't see any other announcements, so I think we can safely say, oh, there's Kelby. Kelby's joining us. Hey, Kelby, you're on.
Thanks. I just wanted to remind everyone, if there are any issues, any concerns, if you need clarification on anything, please let us know. We are here. The community continues to reach out to our office, and we are available to support the council and the community. in whatever ways possible. It's very important that everyone stay safe and have another safe holiday. Enjoy. Stay safe and healthy, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in 2021.
All in one piece.
All in one piece.
I'll second that. Yep, I'll second that. Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah and everything. Please, everyone, stay safe. Thank you and goodbye. The meeting is adjourned at 2:53 p.m.